Powered by GoGoat Sports and in partnership with TSN. This is season 4 and it is episode 6 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. As you can see, if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, there's Ray Ferraro getting ready for game 2 of the week on ESPN in Philadelphia. And, you know, we've got a lot going on this week, Ray. And when we're doing 2 podcasts as we are per week this year, it's like chop. Let's get going, right? So
yeah, no fooling around. This is on you. If it's organized, it's you. If it's not, it's probably going to be that I've screwed it up.
Well, look, normally we do the preamble. We talk about how things have gone and all of that off the top of the show, and then we dive right into headlines. But we're going to maximize our efficiency here today.
I like it. Headlines it is.
Right into headlines, brought to you by Boston Pizza. And I don't know, there's highlights and there's lowlights to this point of the regular season because there's only been a few games played this week. The Toronto Maple Leafs, and going into the game in Montreal on SportsCenter, I said, look, all the Leafs have to do is keep this clean, a clean win. Keep the noise down to a minimum because you know that Leafs Nation is going to be ready to pounce if Matt Murray has a bad game, if things just don't go well. Well, they didn't go well. They turned the puck over, which was unsettling for Matt Murray and just as unsettling for Toronto's defense. And Ray, I mean, I remember talking about this in setting up the regular season, you saying, look, I like Toronto. I just wonder about that defense. And in game 1, the ugly already appeared.
Yeah, so I view teams differently all the time because of where they are. So, for example, I don't know where the Flyers are going to score goals, but I don't have any historical reference because some of their young guys might score goals. I think it's going to be a problem, but still they're young and you've got to build some leeway into that. We've seen this defense. It's the same 6 guys, maybe in different roles or spots and spurts, but I just wonder if it's going to be strong enough for them. And last night it wasn't. And so while it is game 1, and while Matt Murray got beat 3 times over the glove, which is, it's a thing.
Yeah.
You've something to keep in. When I say it's a thing, I mean, you got to keep an eye on it. Is that what becomes the norm? The fact that they lost the game, look, they're going to lose 25 games this year, and each one's going to be a catastrophe. But to start the block out of the blocks like that, sloppy, and that seemed to really strike a burr with Sheldon Keefe.
No doubt about that. And he doubled down again today being Thursday. So you can tell that his patience is paper thin for any lack of effort, lack of compete, mental mistakes, all of that.
That's pressure too, Dregs.
You're darn right. Yeah.
There's no way he can't feel it. And they've had really excellent regular seasons, chopped up as the first one or 2 was, but they feel the pressure. Of course they do.
Yeah.
And now they get Washington that comes in. Washington loses to Boston. And, I don't know how long Don Sweeney should wait on David Pastrnak, but he got 4 points last night. And, so you might not want to wait too long. But, so Washington comes up on a back-to-back, and Samsonov, I believe, will get his first start. It'll
Correct.
be against his former team, and the Caps are a good team too. It's not an easy challenge for the Leafs home opener.
No, and the longer Boston waits on Pastrnak, I mean, you either settle on a deal similar to Huberdeau in Calgary, or you end up with maybe what Panarin got from the New York Rangers if he's allowed to go free. Canucks, magical start against the Oilers. It's 2-0 quickly. Then it stretches to 3-0 before the Oilers special teams victimize the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, Todd McClellan used to say it's a race to 3 in the NHL. And if you get to 3 goals, you win all the time.
Yeah.
I think when you play Edmonton, it's a race to 4. I think most nights you're going to have to get 4 against them because, Edmonton was sloppy, gave up the 2 early goals. I thought Jack Campbell was really good.
He did look good.
Made a lot of really good saves. But eventually you're like, are they all going to not score tonight?
Yeah.
And then once the dam broke, I mean, when it gets to 3-3, you're like, oh boy, from a
Yeah.
Vancouver side, that's going to be tough waters there. But um, you know, we talked about, we picked our MVPs and stuff, and I said, what if McDavid gets 150 points? Well, he's got 4.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of the gate pretty well. And for Vancouver, I think that's their worry, is that they will score and not be able to play with enough structure in their defensive zone, and they give up too much. And they're injured, they're banged up on the blue line, but that's that's a tough one last night. They played hard, and they played half an excellent game, but it's not enough against McDavid and Draisaitl.
All right, 2 more quick ones in headlines. Not connecting this name to any one club, but it is a name in the coaching carousel that is going to draw attention, especially for any team that isn't reaching expectation early in the season. And of course, I'm talking about Barry Trotz. Could his availability maybe encourage, Ray, an itchy trigger finger by an owner or a general manager who sees his club underachieving?
I'm going to say yes, and the reason is that there's an old adage: don't fire the guy you got unless there's somebody better.
Right.
Well, Barry Trotz, one of the best coaches in the history of the game, and a lot of coaches have to come into a new spot, kind of establish themselves, figure out their relationship with the players before you can really get into the meat of help turning things around. Barry Trotz shows up in a dressing room. He doesn't need to get to know the players. They know him. They know what he's about. I do think if a few teams start off on wobbly wheels, that might push the conversations with Trotz, for example, to be quicker.
Yeah.
Because if you think, hey, I might like to talk to him in a month, he might be gone in a month.
Yeah.
And so, the fact that he's there is a really interesting part of what's going on, maybe behind the scenes. Not quite yet, but teams taking a look and see if they stumble out of their first 10 games.
Well, he's ready to coach again. It would be an expensive transaction, but what's the price you're putting on making the playoffs so challenging for the Stanley Cup? Now, let's wrap up headlines with something that's kind of bugging you, right? I mean, as a former player, you're never going to love a salary cap. Players just don't generally. We can appreciate it. We understand it from a business perspective, but you're seeing, smaller rosters because of cap implications. You're seeing players like Nick Robertson with the Toronto Maple Leafs waiver exempt, not playing in the National Hockey League because of cap reasons. Kind of bugs you, doesn't it?
It does. I look at Florida. They can only have 20 players on their roster. And this is why it bugs me, because in some cases you could say it's cap mismanagement. But for a lot of these teams, the reasons they're pushed up against the cap, of course, the pandemic flattened revenues and flattened the salary cap. But their contracts were already signed for a number of significant players.
Mm-hmm.
So they're already on the cap. They can't do anything about it. They're part of their team, and they're a big part of their team. What I would like to see happen, and maybe it just can't, and I'm talking on a temporary basis, and that's until the cap maybe can shuffle a bit, is that each team is able to establish a 3-man taxi squad that plays in the American League. The salary cannot be on any of those players over $1 million.
Okay.
Those players can be brought up on an emergency basis, even if that puts the team over the cap. Just so you don't have a 17-man roster.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it looks silly.
At the NHL level, it does. Yeah.
I get the reasons for it and all that. I just think that if you were able to have this squad of, you would identify those 3 players.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't call a guy up, like I can't call Darren Dreger up and keep him for 6 weeks while the other guys are healthy. No, he comes up, and as soon as the roster's healthy, he goes back down.
Okay.
But that gives you a legit full lineup. And if Florida gets an injury, they cannot replace the player.
No.
Unless he goes on LTI, which means 24 days or 10 games. Lots of players get a Charlie horse and they're out for 6 days. Well, they can't replace him. Then what do you do?
Yeah.
A guy gets sick. Then what do you do?
Yeah.
It bugs me, and I wonder if there's a way around it, at least in the short term.
Well, something we will revisit, especially with the cap management that's going on around the NHL. Those are your headlines. Thanks once again to our friends at Boston Pizza. Rare interviews on Ray and Dregs this season are brought to you by Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? And you try that refreshing CC ginger ale, throw in some lime next time you're having a drink, you're watching regular season hockey or the NFL for the rest of this week. Hopefully everyone had a chance to try the CC and ginger ale mixed and ready in a can over the summer. It is one of our favorites because it takes all the challenges out of mixing and going through all of the hassles. So if you haven't yet, try CC and ginger ale in a can.